All right, welcome. I'm Brandon from Node. I'm going to show you guys some Linux in my live stream today. So, I know Linux has been a popular subject. I wanted to try to just do a little bit of demoing of, what Linux is for those that are kind of curious about it and maybe want to learn how to use it. So, this is Ubuntu 1604 LTS. And this is the desktop version of Ubuntu. So this is one of several different Linux distros that are out there. It's a popular one, and it's one that I like. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up a terminal. And my little terminal window here, I'm just going to show you a couple of things that, are pretty standard to do when you first start kind of using Linux. So the first thing you need to know is that if you type sudo, you're executing your command as an administrator. And that's important because you don't want everything to kind of run that way. You only want to specify when that happens. And then usually you want a password to kind of get prompted up after that. So I'm just going to do sudo aptget update. So aptget, apt-get, is simply a command that is used to install things that are in repositories. Ubuntu has a really interesting system where it actually kind of like uses these cloud-based databases of programs that are compiled sort of like an app store. And you can download and install stuff automatically through that kind of like app store sort of environment. That's the closest thing that I can describe as what apt-get really kind of is. But it's not really like the app store you're used to. You don't browse around and, pick to buy apps usually in there. There actually is an environment for that I can show you, but it's sort of like an open app store. So you can imagine that maybe not everything in there is perfect, or maybe not everything is like as clean as it should be sometimes, or maybe everything is supposed to work if it's in there. So you can run into problems where like you can't install something because it only works on a certain version of Linux. And that's like rare and rare, but it happens now. So I did the updates. That just kind of like tells my Linux, hey, there's um, these are the different things in the catalog that need to be updated. So let me do a sudo apt-get upgrade. This is actually just gonna like install some stuff. So I'm gonna say yes, and it's just basically saying here's some packages that we're gonna get. And a lot of these, if you look at these, are like C libraries and specific versions of libraries for like C and stuff like that. GTK, might relate to like my GUI or, certain graphical elements of certain programming languages and things. So a lot of these are very program language specific libraries that it kind of wants to update. And it's important because, you know, security threats constantly are being researched by the bad guys and the good guys alike. When, a researcher finds something that can be used as an exploit, or when a programmer finds a bug, or any number of, reasons for updating code for improvement purposes, just, all kinds of reasons. That stuff, that code gets updated automatically through gets sent to the repos. And we just download it in this update process. So this combs through my catalog of existing libraries that I'm using for all my software in Linux. And it's matching up with the catalog of what's the most recent release of all those things. And since this is a very like big open source project, you can only imagine, a lot of updates happen quite frequently. There's also a certain sort of like major release changes that happen between these versions. And so this update process kind of contains the versions of these libraries that work with the version of Linux I'm using. It's real important. Otherwise, I would run this update and everything would just blow up. That was the problem. It always used to be, when we were doing these things a long time ago, before these systems really had this, and you had to like download everything manually and sort of like build it and compile it. So you'd run a lot of like make commands, and you'd be building a lot of compiling a lot of code. And so you'd run into so many problems where like this code wasn't compatible with this version of this kernel, and this dependency is required by this program, but that other dependency doesn't work, and you got to find the right one, and going back and removing this and removing that and installing this and installing that. Just it was like a total nightmare. So this apt-get system sort of makes that nightmare go away for the most part in Debian. And this is a Debian specific thing. So Debian is like Ubuntu and a few other flavors like it, but predominantly it's Ubuntu. Um, and I think that, if somebody was to say, well, like, why would I use Debian over Red Hat, or Red Hat over Debian, or whatever? There's like good reasons for either case. It's not like one is better than the other. It's some cases are better than other cases for different distros. Like, for example, if I'm using a desktop version of Linux, personally, the Ubuntu Desktop is predominantly one of the better ones. But a lot of people like Fedora since it's, Red Hat based. And Fedora is great. There's nothing wrong with Fedora. Matter of fact, Fedora has like more bleeding edge features. I don't like the bleeding edge features as much sometimes on my desktop version of Linux, just because I want a really stable environment that is a real pleasure to use for me. And my experience with Fedora has been more sketchy. But many of my friends and peers swear by it and refuse to use Ubuntu completely. So that is really just personal preference. But CentOS and Red Hat, they're very stable systems and run very stable appliance-based applications. Red Hat has enterprise support, so you can actually get like high-level enterprise support. Now, Canonical from Ubuntu has support too. And they have up and coming enterprise support. But I think that Red Hat's enterprise support for like higher level enterprise commercial grade stuff, they probably hold the trophy right now. Okay, so this update's done. Um, but anyone who's like starting out on Linux or wants to sort of like do a bunch of stuff with Linux, and it doesn't want to be very like task specific, or if your programs can run on Ubuntu, or use it if they're Red Hat specific, or CentOS, if they're basically like RPM Red Hat, very very specific Red Hat stuff, then of course you gotta use that. But the main reason I think for using Red Hat versus Ubuntu is for the enterprise support that you can get from it. Okay, so I've run the updates, and now let's see if there's any kind of like distribution upgrade that I can do. So let's see, sudo aptget dist upgrade. Okay, so it does say there's a dist upgrade that I can get here. A lot of times I like to take these, and this is another personal preference type thing, but um, whenever I can do a distribution upgrade, I tend to do it, and it's just up to you. So I'm gonna let this one sort of execute here. Now this is all live, so if we have any issues, then we'll know. Sudo aptget upgrade, and we should have nothing. Okay, sudo aptget update. Sudo apt-get upgrade, and we should have probably nothing. Great. Okay. So we've done all the updates, and now the system is fully up to date. So from here, I can kind of like start to sort of like look around in Linux and say, what is this? So let's just, right click and, if I go change desktop background, I can mess around here, pick a wallpaper, hit this little plus sign to pick a file. Um, I can change my launcher icon size. So these are the icons over here. So it's at 48 now, but I could like reduce the size of those significantly if I wanted to. Uh, I can hide that launcher over on the left, and I can also make it sensitivity to reveal, very specific there. There's not a whole lot of settings on the display part of that, but if I go under displays, then I can get into my resolution. And if I have any other actual monitors, they would show up here and I could mess around with those. So that's where I actually go to manipulate my displays. Um, and a lot of times if I have like an NVIDIA card, there'll be NVIDIA there'll be an NVIDIA control panel too. So, we already looked at our appearance icon, which was those desktop settings, and there is there's not a whole lot to really worry about. There's our mouse sensitivity stuff. There's network settings, of course, um, and we can set up VPNs and all kinds of stuff. We can add printers if we want to. So, we could actually go through and locate network printers and stuff and actually set them up here. Um, and we can manipulate our sound from here. So choose what we're playing our sound through and all this inputs, our microphone, our, various sound effects and everything. So, those are just some fundamental settings. Uh, a lot of the software and update stuff, like I just like to say leave it in there and just let it do it automatically. Um, we can add repos if there's special repos that we want to have. And so it's not uncommon for us to have those if we're installing special things. And then, I think that one of the more interesting parts of Ubuntu, and this is just built-in based stuff. I mean, it comes with the LibreOffice stuff, of course. But the thing that I like, and I think they're making some changes here, but I do like the fact that they have their software center. And so I can sort of just go in here and I can say, oh, you know what? Okay, it's a good point. Transmission is an app. Maybe I want to download, BitTorrent files over my Linux install here. So if I want to get some torrents, then let's see if this will be so kind as to load. Then I can actually see if this is installed. It may already be. So yeah, and here it is. And so now, like, here's an application for doing BitTorrent. So I could open up a torrent, and I could actually just download torrents, and and upload them back. We can go through these different categories of stuff and find so many different things that are just so awesome. And I highly recommend people kind of to go through these because there's a lot of power. I mean, I use gparted a lot. It's a really handy utility for, partitioning and stuff like that. But that's kind of, advanced stuff. Um, I think that there is a lot of opportunity to use this for some cool graphics, like LibreOffice Draw. I use this all the time. I use it instead of Visio in many cases. I haven't ever used my paint, but the GIMP image editor, I've used that plenty of times. Blender is super powerful. Inkscape is like a Adobe Illustrator competitor that's very simple and lets you create vector graphics. And these are just the featured. There's a number of other, like in this one category, just image-based manipulation tools, things for graphics. I mean, I could probably say, okay, well, let's look for something that I know is cool, like Kazam. Okay, So here's Kazam. All right. And what does Kazam do? Kazam is a simple screencasting and screenshotting application. So, there's a built-in uh, screenshot application that's already always built in, and you can say select an area to grab, and you could sit there and just grab this real quick, and then either just save it or copy it to clipboard or whatever. And I like that tool a lot. I usually keep it over here on my bar. But Kazam is also a great tool to use for like recording, screen capping, and everything. Now there's some stuff that's not in here, like uh, Open Broadcast is not in there. Like let's see, is Skype in here? Skype might be in here. Like Skype isn't in here, but if we go, we can download Skype from Skype's website and install it. Okay, so not everything that you can install for Linux is located in this store, but a lot of stuff is. Pativi is a video editor. OpenShot is another one. I've used these. They're good. They're cool. I mean, they're not like the best in the world, but they get you. They get you around. I think that a lot of the development tools are really good, like Eclipse. And this is an older version, probably. Yeah, Mono is here, so you can develop in .NET in Linux. Glade. Um, I like. I tend to keep some certain things installed. Like Bluefish is always installed on my stuff, just by default. I always just make sure I have Bluefish. It's just a text editor, and if you've never seen it, I'll open it up. So there's just some examples of, and here's like some file IDs that I was working with when I was working with a virus that was infecting something a while back. And it's nice because I can work with files and keep them kind of stateful. Genie, little simple little IDE. I mean, there's tons of little IDEs. There's Arduino IDEs. There's um, C IDEs, Python. I mean, everything. Everything you can need for development is certainly. I mean, MySQL Workbench. I don't know. I mean, it's just everything you could possibly want. Of course, I always have Offices, the LibreOffice installed. Some people like to use Evolution. I'm not a big fan. Um, I am a big fan of LibreOffice. I think that it's really great. And, Audacity is great for recording and editing files. Rhythmbox is cool, but I like, let's see, is it Pythos? Yeah, I like Pythos. It's my favorite. And it was written entirely in Python. It can integrate with Pandora. So it's kind of nice because I can have like a Pandora player connected up to my Pandora account running in Linux natively, which is really nice, I think. Um, the list goes on and on and on with this stuff. So there's a lot of depth just in this. If you were to spend a few hours literally going through and installing as much of these and just playing with them as much as you can and learning them. I've done that repeatedly over the years where I just spend a weekend in the software center and just say what all can I install, and what can it potentially do for me. And then I can learn like what can Ubuntu specifically do for me. Of course, there's browsers, Firefox in there. There's also Chromium. Chromium's cool. I think a lot of people like Chromium a lot better than Firefox even. Um, and see, do we have Opera? I don't know if Opera is in here. Yeah, there's not even any Opera browser that's like by default there. It's like Chromium or Firefox. And then you can install, I think, there's like a Flash plugin for Firefox. I don't know if you do it from here. I think you do it from inside of the browser itself. And so, I mean, you can get it to play Flash. That's not a problem. So this is just the scratching the surface of this. Um, I use Linux. I use this just about every day for everything I can. The fact that most of my applications will open up fine in the browser means that I can easily have my desktop set up with my email, webmail access, um, documents, RDP clients. I can have multiple desktops laid out, so I can have like, let's just show you, like, open up a calculator and just throw it here. And then if I wanted to come over here, I could have a totally different layout of windows, in these different workspaces. So Windows 10 just added this feature, and I was finally like, wow, finally I can actually use Workspaces, because Workspaces is cool. You can have like documents laid out certain ways, and you kind of just like, you can use your control. I think it's like Control Alt Arrow keys. Uh, yeah, move between the different workspaces. So you can quickly flow between things. Like you could have a grid of windows over here and a grid of windows here and here and here, and then you sort of like make this circular sort of flow through your windows. And by the time you flow from, one window all the way back through, back around to it, whatever you were doing in whatever window, whatever task is, cruising along, and you can kind of keep up with everything. So you can have your email organized in one workspace, and your like something you're browsing in a web browser in another one, and something you're writing in another one, and utilities in it. I mean, so these are, and I think you can make more than this for workspaces per se, but this is just what I have laid out. I think that workspaces feature is like really important, and it really adds to the power of Linux, and it really makes it gives it that kind of like ability to really push your tasks even on one screen. I was excited to see it in Windows 10, the feature finally there. It's an Apple feature. It's been around for a long time in Linux and Apple. It's nothing new there, but um, I really enjoyed seeing it. So this is kind of the fundamentals. I mean, we can link up to VPNs, we can browse files, we can open whatever kind of file we need. We can edit files, we can do whatever we pretty much want. And I like uh, I like the simplicity and the ease of use for it, the speed of it. It's very fast, it's very low intensive on the resources. Um, I think the age of Ubuntu Desktop is kind of definitely here now. So the time has sort of passed when people would say, "Oh, Linux, it's not ready for desktop yet. There's no way we can't implement it and use it." Now you can. I mean, it pretty much, beyond like group policies, objects being applied from, let's say, Microsoft Active Directory. I think that beyond that, Linux is definitely here, and for those who want to use it and play with it, you should definitely download it. I'll just show you a couple things in the browser here related to that. So open up a browser. I'm just going to go to Ubuntu's website, and just show you that if we were to come in here, and if we were uh, to download this desktop, and then let's say we go to alternative downloads and torrents, and then let's come down here to BitTorrent, and let's just say we want the 1604 LTS 64-bit, okay, desktop, because LTS is long-term support, so usually it's just better to use it. And so we'll open it with transmission, which is what we were just in a few minutes ago. So now transmission's going to open this, and then I could just say, open. And now it's actually going to download that ISO. Um, so I'm not going to do that whole entire thing because it'll probably take a few minutes. But Yeah, it might not take that long actually. It might only take like 5 minutes. But you know, once I have that, then there's a couple of different ways that I can um, go about doing that. There's a let's see here. Is it Disk Maker? Startup Disk Creator. Okay. So in Ubuntu, if you're already running Ubuntu, or if you got, how whatever, you can get this thing called the Startup Disk Creator. And you can take your ISO and you can burn a startup disk with it. And you can actually just right click the ISO and just burn the ISO straight to a disk, and you know, it'll make it. The startup disk creator, I believe, I think it can make a USB stick. Yeah, because you say, here's my source, and then you say, use this USB stick, for example. So Startup Disk Creator is really great because it can quickly make you a USB stick um, of this. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and I want to pause this, and I want to just delete. I don't want to actually do that. Okay, so that's one. But if you look at, hang on, yeah, Lili, it's Linux Live USB Creator. If you're in Windows and you want to do this from Windows, I recommend you download Lili, and you just you literally stick your USB key in, drop it down from this list, click on like ISO, pick your ISO that you downloaded. You don't worry about anything else, and then you click this lightning bolt down here, and everything is done for you. It makes your bootloader to your USB. It's very easy to create a boot disk for Linux that way. So if you're on a Windows machine and you can't make you can't use a Windows or a Ubuntu disk creator, then that's how I prefer to go through and make it. Just use Lili. So from there, the only difference between the desktop and the server versions is more or less like the fact that the desktop version has the GNOME GUI installed. And let me see here. Let me see if I can do something. I'm going to try something. There's like one command that we can use. Is it this? Sudo aptget. Oops. Sudo aptget install taskil. I think this is it. Hang on. I'm just typing it wrong, I think. Yeah, that's all. Just typing it wrong. Okay. Apt-get install task cell. Alright. Yes, install sudo task cell. So if we just do this and we look, we could be like, okay, here's Ubuntu Desktop, right? So that's installed, and we could remove it, and we'd have like Ubuntu without a desktop. Um, there's a whole bunch of other stuff. Basic Ubuntu server, openssh server, Xubuntu. I mean, these are, Postgres database. These are easy things here to install. There should be I think there's even like a lamp. I know on the server task cell, it gives us the option to do like a lamp in server. So let's see here. Yeah, lamp server. So like we could literally say, hey, I want a web server right now. And I could just say, oh, you know what? Let's make this thing into a web server. So I could install Apache, MySQL, and PHP just by doing this, literally. Just like bam. Okay, done. Here we go. Let's do it. Let's just do it. Why not? I mean, whatever. Right? Just make me lamp. So I mean, then if I just point a browser to my local host and stick a document in there, I could like sit there and develop a website from my local computer if I wanted to. Be the same thing as installing XAMPP or WAMP, essentially. And this could be, I mean, this is like production ready too. So, um, it is I mean, literally, it's totally production ready. So I could, if I was running this on a Ubuntu server and didn't have the desktop, even if I did have the desktop, it matters not. It really doesn't make a difference because it just literally is opening the port up. See if it'll do this. Pretty much going to remove it after this anyway, so yeah, yeah, yeah. It's pretty quick. It's on PHP 7. Okay, great. So now I should be running an entire LAMP server, and you wouldn't know it, but I mean, I suppose if I was to like be like, why not? Let's see here. Let's just see if I go to like http://localhost if I get anything. Yeah, see. So this is my local document root for my website, for my web server, and then let me see if I can find it. Probably is going to be like var. Is it var? Dub dub dub. Yeah. Let's see. So I think this is my default document right here. Yeah, here it is. So I could like if I just threw a website right here, if I just dumped like made like a, you know, I mean shoot, I could just go right into like anyway, I'm not gonna build a website on this live stream, but anyway, this has got an entire. It's got PHP on it. It's got MySQL servers running. I mean, let's see. Here I am, my MySQL server right here. So, um, this is get out of here. Oh my gosh. All right. So like that's how easy it is in Ubuntu to set up an entire LAMP server. And from there, literally, I could drop WordPress on here and host a WordPress site. Sudo task cell. Say I'm like, oh, you know what? I want to be able to like SSH into myself. Come over here, install open SSH server. Bam. So I could say, okay, now I could just like, okay, ifconfig, and if I was ifconfig, come on, okay, and if I was like sitting on a local area network somewhere with a telnet client, I could hit my IP address as SSH and log in with my username and password, and bam, you know, I'm in. So, and then I could configure whatever I need to and move around and do whatever, remotely. So, like, essentially what I just did is I just turned this desktop into kind of like a server. I mean, I made a web server, I've installed SSH, remote access. I've installed MySQL, PHP. I haven't installed the email services. I could, I'm not going to. Or file hosting services if I wanted to have a file server. Um, you know, DNS server. Um, the list goes on and on. I mean, I don't even know what all these are. These things, sometimes they add so many of these. I'm not sure what Mythubuntu is. I should look that up. Um, Video creation and editing suite, publishing applications. I don't know exactly what applications that these add, but I can tell you that we've seen a lot of them already when we look through that software center. So now, let's say that I say, I want to get rid of my LAMP server, and I want to get rid of my OpenSSH server. Now it's removing it. And I mean, a Linux-based web server, like nobody's going to say, oh, you have an Ubuntu LAMP server, that's trash. I mean, if somebody says, oh, you're running XAMPP on your Windows 10 desktop, that's definitely trash. But it works, functions, it gets it done. Of course, we all have to do it from time to time, but as a development environment, like just being able, I love running Eclipse in Linux and programming in Python in Linux. And you know what? Sudo aptget install vim. I bet it's already here because I use it all the time. No? You know what? I like the best text editor I prefer. Sorry, I know I'll probably get a lot of hate for this, but it's Vim. I like Vim. I think Vim is better than Vi, and Vi used to be the only thing you could use in Unix. So, all you guys that like Nano, sudo apt-get install Nano. Nano is awesome. Matter of fact, um, as an editor, Nano has a much more natural GUI. You can go down here and oh, I hit like Control X to exit. And that's what you do by looking at that. But in Vim, you're like, what do I do? Okay. Huh? You have to know in Vim what you're doing. You have to know if I want to type, I can't just type. I have to actually press the insert key on my keyboard. I have to find the insert key. Where's my insert key? I'm actually looking for my, okay, yeah. I have to actually like find the insert key, press it, and then I can, oh my gosh, where's my regular insert key? So, this isn't a Vim tutorial, but essentially, this keyboard layout should have one, but it doesn't seem to. But Vim is what I prefer. It's just what I prefer. But you know what? If you got Ubuntu Desktop, don't be using Vim anyway. Who would use Vim anyway? Unless you're like, anyway, gedit. Okay, gedit's the same thing. It's great. It even, gedit is awesome, and some of the reasons it's awesome is because it'll do like code highlighting and stuff, properly. So, like Bluefish and whatnot. So that is, let's see. Can we open this with Bluefish? Yeah. I'll just show you kind of like what I'm talking about. Like Bluefish has, so like look here, we've got a really nice, like we can see our brackets. We can work inside of containers in this. We can see how our code is laid out here real nicely. It's the thing about Bluefish and whatnot. If we, let's say we take the same file, we close it, let's open it with gedit. Okay, I'll show you same exact thing. All right. So it's not quite as nice. It doesn't have exactly as nice formatting, but it's pretty much the same thing. Okay. So either way, however, whatever you use, these text pads aren't just straight up notepads. They're much more powerful than like Windows Notepad, and I think that's worth sort of being aware of. Well, I have been streaming here for a little while. I'm gonna sign off because I think I've covered the majority of the stuff. And for those of you who, are interested in Ubuntu and interested in Linux, hit me up, you know, chat with me here on this feed, and I might be able to give you some help, give you some tips. Suggest asking, just getting onto the Ubuntu forums if you're using Ubuntu, and that's probably the best place to start. All right, so this has been fun, and I hope it's been educational. I'm Brandon from Node, and I am signing